we have not won in what I call the definition of winning in 3 successive election cycles. I mean, here in California, 2018 was a wipeout. It was like we lost half of litigation. 2020, we lost the White House. We lost the House. We barely clung to the Senate. 2022, we're barely clinging to the House such that there is a leadership race that has conservative members of Congress calling each other names on Twitter. Airing their dirty laundry out in public. And we're saying, yeah, let's sign up for another 2 years of this and another election cycle. America can't afford for us to continue to be behind the 8 ball and playing catch up with Democrats. We just can't. And so if nothing changes, we are going to expect the same thing. And I for one, don't want to be sitting here twiddling my thumbs while we're 10, 20 years behind the Democrats.
I'm Dave Rubin, and joining me today is the founder of Dhillon Law Group, an absolute free speech warrior. I'm talking first team, all free speech warrior, and now candidate for the Republican National Committee Chair Harmeet Dhillon. Harmeet, welcome back to the Rubin Report.
Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you, Harmeet. We haven't spoken in a while, at least on air, and I thought you would be the perfect guest to be our last guest of 2022, because one of the main messages that I'm always pushing on this show is that good people have to get involved. And just in the last couple weeks, you have thrown your hat in the ring and you're getting involved. So my first question, I suppose, is, are you nuts?
Yeah, this question has been asked of me by several people who love me. And, there come a few times, I'm sure, Dave, you've had them where you were like, hey, let me go start this new thing, or let me leave this cozy thing I have and follow my dream. I had that I've had that a few times in my life, and I kind of felt struck by that. So I, discussed it with my husband. We prayed over it, and, we decided, yes, you feel in your heart, you have to stand up and challenge what's going on at the RNC, because you cannot stand by and just nod and have, another shrimp cocktail and pretend like everything is going well when it's not. And so I really felt compelled. I've kind of felt that way for the last couple of years, in fact. But, after the 2020 election debacle, President Trump endorsed Ronna McDaniel for a 3rd term. And, that itself was something that a lot of folks thought, well, maybe it was time for new leadership then. Not that it was her fault, but when you are in charge and perhaps you don't, quite pivot and respond to changing election laws and other issues and messaging, maybe it's time for a fresh approach. Well, we didn't have that. And so she did promise in her last run that she was going to have a 3rd and final term. And then suddenly, surprisingly, she said she's going to run for a 4th term. And so I said, wait a minute, we have not won in what I call the definition of winning in 3 successive election cycles. I mean, here in California, 2018 was a wipeout. It was like we lost half of litigation. 2020, we lost the White House. We lost the House. We barely clung to the Senate. 2022, we're barely clinging to the House such that there is a leadership race that has conservative members of Congress calling each other names on Twitter. Airing their dirty laundry out in public. And we're saying, yeah, let's sign up for another 2 years of this and another election cycle. America can't afford for us to continue to be behind the 8 ball and playing catch up with Democrats. We just can't. And so if nothing changes, we are going to expect the same thing. And I for one, don't want to be sitting here twiddling my thumbs while we're 10, 20 years behind the Democrats. And we don't have to be, because, Dave, there's so much energy in our movement. There's so many smart, young and middle-aged people outside DC, people who are social media savants, people who are fluent with the culture, people who get that the base of our party has shifted from neocon Cold War warriors and Chamber of Commerce messaging and tax cuts for the rich to blue-collar workers and young people who are energized about the future and want to have a home and a family. We are out of touch, and I don't think we need to be. So I'm here to bring us back into touch and have that attempt to reform the RNC into fitting what the base of the party is.
Okay, so I want to unpack all that, including some of the Republican infighting and everything else that you touched on there. But before we do all of that, for anyone in my audience that hasn't seen you on the show before or isn't that familiar, Can we do a little Harmeet 101 real quick? Why did I describe you as a free speech warrior?
Well, I've been doing free speech litigation literally since before I was a lawyer. I went to Dartmouth at age 16. I grew up in rural North Carolina. And at Dartmouth, I became the editor-in-chief of the famous Dartmouth Review newspaper that Dinesh D'Souza, Laura Ingraham, and many, now famous people on the right have been part of. Mm-hmm. And during that time, 3 of my colleagues were actually kicked out of Dartmouth for something they wrote about a professor. And so back in the day, the American Civil Liberties Union used to actually care about free speech. And they sent us a lawyer who helped us sue Dartmouth. So at the age of 19, I was on 60 Minutes talking about free speech issues on American campuses. We won. My friends got reinstated, sent me off of my pre-med course into a career in law. And so ever since I graduated from law school, now almost 30 years ago, I've been working on issues of liberty. And since I started my own law firm, we have focused a lot on free speech issues in virtually every context, but we're well known for our work in social media censorship. I've sued Twitter a couple of times, 3 times, where, just representing half of conservative social media. We represent reporters who are sued by politicians. We represented the Daily Wire in litigation in the United States Supreme Court. And Project Veritas, we've stood up for their rights in court. And so it's a real honor because it's really the epitome for me. The First Amendment is first for a reason. And it's something so special compared to the rest of the world, even the English-speaking world. They don't have a First Amendment. We have that. And so it's a passion to do that work, and probably a third of the lawyers at my 22 lawyer firm do that work, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, and I want to give you a little credit publicly that I've given you privately, which is that over the years when I've had a lot of crazy hit pieces written about me, I've called you a couple times, particularly the one with the New York Times when they basically on the cover said I'm the head of the alt-right, and I was like, can I sue them and whatever. And you calmly explained to me that unfortunately in the world we live in, even with our libel and slander laws, it's tough, and it'll probably cost you way more than it'll cost this giant corporation. So you've talked me off the ledge once or twice, so I owe you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, to step
now I don't
away,
care, for the record. They keep doing it, and it's like now it's kind of funny to me. But years ago, yeah.
You're bigger than them, and so what? So that believe me. In fact, the RNC has been peddling hit pieces about me, and it's very upsetting. But luckily, I'm surrounded by calm people who are like, the truth is there, you'll prevail, and so it's all good. But to leave a job that I'm very passionate about, 2 jobs. I also started a nonprofit. Yep. People who can't afford, or for other reasons, they need pro bono legal help for free. And that is a very, active nonprofit, Center for American Liberty. We represent children who are targeted by transgender groomers. We represent people in free speech issues. We represent a host of other civil rights issues. And to leave that in my law firm, which does the favorite part of law that most lawyers would kill to be able to do all day and get paid for it, that's how passionate I feel about this RNC thing. I mean, I love my job right now. I love my jobs, but I love America more than that. And I think that we're just driving this thing off a cliff here, and we can't afford it. So nobody else stepped up. So I stepped up. I mean, Lee Zeldin talked about it, but ultimately didn't want to take on the challenge because it is a challenge. And I stepped up. So I'm gonna see it through.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of mindless drivel, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.